I never thought my own parents would fire me, like I was some stranger. I worked in their family business since I was 16. Late nights, unpaid weekends, covering their screw UPS and sacrificing my college dreams so the company could survive. And then one morning I walked into the office and saw my name missing from the employee list. No explanation. No warning. Just silence. My dad called me into his office with that fake manager tone he used when he wanted to sound professional. He said, "It's not personal, son. We just can't afford to keep you right now." My mom avoided eye contact, shuffling papers like she couldn't hear me. Asked, "So you're firing your own son to save money?" They both nodded. Turns out they rehired my cousin instead. The same guy who once stole from the company, crashed one of the delivery vans, and blamed me for it. But yes, family, they said. Family that actually listens. I walked out that day with nothing. My last paycheck was barely enough to cover rent. They didn't even offer me a reference letter. For months, I struggled working night shifts at a warehouse, eating cheap ramen, ignoring their check-in texts that always ended with, "Hope you're doing well." It was like I'd become a ghost in their lives. But karma has a funny sense of timing. Because just last week, I got a call from my mom. Her voice cracked when she said, "We're in trouble. The business, it's falling apart." She begged me to come back, and I laughed. I know it sounds cruel, but after everything they did, after throwing me out like garbage, part of me wanted to see them fall. But another part, the part that still remembered, Christmas mornings in that office, helping Dad fix printers and Mom counting invoices, that part hesitated. So here I am torn between revenge and forgiveness, and wondering AITA for refusing to help my parents after they fired me. To save money after that call, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my mom as trembling voice and my dad as silence. The same man who once said family comes first. Now couldn't he even say sorry? For 2 days, I ignored their messages. And my cousin, the one who replaced me, texted, "Bro, you have to come back. I messed up a few deals, and your dad's losing it." No kidding. He messed up was his favorite phrase for ruined everything. Didn't he respond? But curiosity got the better of me, so I checked the business page online. Dozens of angry reviews, late deliveries, broken promises, customers saying they'd never come back. It was like watching a slow-motion car crash, painful yet satisfying. 3 nights later, my parents showed up at my apartment. They didn't even call first. I opened the door and saw my mom in tears, my dad standing behind her, stiff and awkward. "Please just listen," she said. "We're drowning. Your cousin is leaving, and the clients want you back. You were the only one they trusted." I crossed my arms, "You mean the same clients you told I was unreliable and too emotional?" Dad looked away. Mom tried to touch my arm. "We said things we didn't mean. You know how business pressure is." I almost left. Business pressure, they destroyed my life, and now it was just pressure. Then came the line that flipped a switch in me. My dad said, "You owe us, son. We gave you everything." That was it, the guilt trip. The emotional blackmail. The manipulation I'd grown up with. I stepped back and said, "You gave me a childhood of unpaid labor and broken promises." Mom started crying again. Dad's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. He just said, "So that's it. You're going to let your family fall apart." I looked at him and replied, You fired your family first. They left without another word. That night, I opened my laptop, stared at the company's LinkedIn page and thought, maybe this was my chance not to help them, but to build something better. So I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to start my own business in the same field, with the same clients they once ignored. If they wanted to play business ID, show them what real competition looks like. The idea started small, just a notebook filled with sketches, budgets, and half-baked strategies, scribbled between warehouse shifts. I didn't have capital connections or investors. What I did have was knowledge. I knew every client my parents ever worked with, every supplier they depended on, every mistake they made pretending they were still the family company. I reached out to a few old clients, people who'd always treated me kindly. One of them, Mr. Larson, remembered me immediately. You were the only one who actually showed up on time. He laughed. Your folks haven't answered an email in weeks. That call turned into my first contract. I spent every night working until dawn, building my own small operation out of a rented storage unit and a cheap laptop. I called it Phoenix Supply because it felt like I was rising from ashes. The first month I barely broke even. The second I started to get noticed, word spread fast, not just about my prices, but about reliability. I answered calls at 2 a.m., delivered products myself when suppliers failed, and treated every customer like gold. Then one morning I woke up to a voicemail from my mom. Her voice sounded cold, no, not desperate, but angry. We know what you're doing. You're stealing our clients. You're ruining our name. I didn't respond because the truth was, I wasn't stealing anything. They lost those clients on their own. Still, something inside me twisted. Was I doing this out of pride or revenge? A few days later, I ran into my dad at a supply trade event. He looked older, tired, almost fragile, a man drowning in consequences he'd created. He walked up to me, forcing a smile. I see you're doing well, he said. Maybe too well, I wanted to tell him to shove it. Instead, I just nodded and said, You taught me everything I know. His face tightened. For a moment, I saw regret flash in his eyes, but it vanished as fast as it came. That night, I got an email from one of their biggest suppliers. We're switching to Phoenix Supply. It was official. I was now their biggest competitor. And for the first time, I realized something terrifying. I didn't just want to beat them. I wanted to destroy them. Success felt surreal. Phoenix Supply wasn't just surviving. It was growing faster than I dared hope. New clients called every week. I hired 2 people I trusted. Maya, a logistics wizard who could organize chaos, and Jamal, a young salesman, with an energy that made clients believe in us. They became the family I chose. They believed in the mission, reliability over lip service. But the growth came at a cost. I stopped sleeping. I missed birthdays and ignored texts. My life narrowed to metrics and delivery windows. Every time I paused, I heard my dad's voice saying, Business pressure. Only now it sounded like an accusation. I wore like armor. My parents didn't sit idle. They launched a PR campaign trying to paint Phoenix as an unethical upstart. My inbox filled with threats, cease and desist letters with big legal fonts, anonymous complaints to suppliers, and a smear article that my cousin likely ghost wrote and paid to publish. The article accused me of poaching staff and siphoning contracts. It was clever because it was vague enough to look legitimate and ugly enough to hurt. One Friday, we lost a small but promising client because their board panicked. A client called, voice careful. We're worried about legal fallout. I felt sick. Maya stayed late and said, we can fight it. We'll prove our invoices. But proofs cost time and money, two things I was burning through. At night, I replayed the faces of my parents. There was the mom who braided my hair for school photos, and the dad who taught me how to negotiate. The anger that fueled me began to feel like hunger, something that needed feeding and never satisfied. Jamal noticed. You okay, man? He asked one morning, catching me staring at an old photo of the office party, where my parents still left. I'm fine, I lied. The cracks showed elsewhere. My sister, who always avoided family fights, texted, Dad had a collapse at the office today, hospital. I froze. Compassion searched for a second and was swallowed by dread. If I showed up and his life was fragile, would I be the monster who let him fall? Would I become the person my parents accused me of being instead of going to the hospital? I checked our cash flow and then drove to a supplier meeting. When I finally sat in my car at midnight, the weight of the choice hit me. Keep pushing until they were broken, or step back and risk watching them crumble alone. I sent a message to Maya. We need to decide what kind of company we are. She replied, we already are. Do you? I didn't answer. The next morning, a lawyer from my parents' side called to propose a meeting. They wanted to talk terms. Part revenge, part reconciliation, part legal warfare. I had to decide which one I would choose, and that decision would change everything. The meeting was set for Tuesday morning at a neutral office downtown. I hadn't seen both of my parents in the same room since the day they fired me. I wore the same suit I'd worn that day, not out of nostalgia, but as a quiet reminder. A scar turned into armor. When I walked in, they were already there. My dad looked thinner gray streaks in his hair, his hands trembling slightly when he reached for his coffee. My mom smiled politely, but it was the kind of smile people wear at funerals. Across the table sat their lawyer, the same one who sent those threatening letters. He gestured for me to sit. Let us make this simple, he said. Your parents are willing to buy your company generously. I almost laughed. Buy my company the same business. They said I wasn't good enough to run. I waited for the number, and when he slid the offer sheet across the table, I had to bite my tongue not to grin. It was insulting, not even a quarter of what Phoenix was worth. Wow, I said. You must really think I'm stupid. Dad leaned forward. It's not about that we're offering stability. We can rebuild the family brand together. Mom added softly, we could use your skills, honey. You could be CEO one day. The word could cut deep. Not will. Not deserve to be just another empty promise. I folded the paper and slid it back. You didn't want me when I worked for free. Why would I sell what I built for nothing? Dad's face hardened. Because this industry, AITA kind. You won't last long. You don't have the infrastructure we do. That was his mistake. He still thought I was the kid who needed his approval. I smiled. You're right, the industry. AITA kind. That's why your suppliers are calling me now. For a moment he froze. His eyes flicked to my mom, who looked like she might cry again. The lawyer started to say something, but I stood up. Meeting is over. As I turned to leave, my dad said quietly, You're making a big mistake, son. I looked back at him and said, I learned from the best. Outside, the air felt electric. I should be felt triumphant. Back at the office, Maya met me with a worried look. "You okay?" "Yeah, I lied. Just business." She handed me her tablet. "Then you will want to see this." It was an email, a leaked message chain between my cousin and a journalist. They were planning a new story, accusing Phoenix Supply of tax fraud. Completely fabricated, but dangerous. The headline draft at the top read, "Local startup exposed built on lies." And the worst part, the story was scheduled to go live tomorrow morning. The headline draft felt like a punch to the gut. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Tax fraud. Lies expose all of it. A fabricated knife aimed straight at Phoenix's throat. I felt my chest go cold, not from fear exactly, but from a calculation. If that story hit, even our loyal clients would hesitate. Banks might freeze accounts. Suppliers could pull out to avoid association. Maya stepped forward steady and efficient as ever. "We need to hit back fast," she said. "Public statement, legal notice, and call the clients ourselves. Don't let them read anything first." Jamal was already on the phone, voice low and fierce, calming the client we'd nearly lost last week. I watched him work and felt pride, strange unfamiliarity. This wasn't he just my fight anymore. It was our company's fight. I called our lawyer, a young woman who smelled like coffee and confidence. She wanted timestamps, bank statements, tax returns, paper proof we were clean. I felt ridiculous assembling receipts, like I'd become some paranoid accountant. But we did it every invoice, every signed contract, every cleared transaction. We had nothing to hide. Then I did something I hadn't expected to do. I walked into my parents' old office. The place felt hollow echoes of my past life. I asked to see the files, not to steal, but to compare if they were planting stories. I needed to know how deep the rot was. The receptionist, surprised to see me quietly, handed over a folder that had my old project notes. I flipped through, heart stuttering, as names and numbers I once trusted blurred into potential evidence. On my way out, I bumped into my sister in the hallway. She looked exhausted, eyes rimmed red. "They don't know what they're doing," she whispered. "Dad is scared. He says he didn't sign anything." So either my cousin was acting alone, or my parents had been too desperate to notice the details. Either way, the smear piece was very real. Very soon it would be everywhere. Back at Phoenix, I dictated a statement and asked Maya to post it with every channel we controlled. I also called a journalist ID once helped to contact, who'd written fair pieces before. I explained the situation bluntly and handed over proof. He asked one question that hit harder than any headline. "Why would your parents do this?" I paused. The answer felt larger than the scandal itself. Money, pride, fear, or something worse. They needed a scapegoat. That night, our statement went live. Our lawyer filed a cease and desist, and Jamal slept in the office to keep watches. For a few anxious hours, the internet hummed. Then, mercifully, our side gained traction. The journalist I called published a balanced piece. Phoenix responded, provided documents, and questioned the motives behind the leak. It didn't erase the damage. A few clients still hesitated. Our phone lines buzzed with skeptical inquiries. But we survived the first wave. As relief washed over me, a notification popped up. My dad had posted something on social media. A short video of him standing in the old warehouse, voice shaking, saying, "We made mistakes. We're sorry." The comment thread exploded: sympathy, anger, accusations, and one pinned reply from my cousin. claiming he'd only tried to help the family. I felt like I was back at the starting line, but with higher stakes. I had to decide expose my cousin and risk tearing the family apart publicly, or keep fighting in the shadows and let the rot fester. Either choice would cost something I wasn't sure I could afford anymore. The choice felt like standing on a cliff. Expose the cousin and watch the family implode, or let him play the martyr and keep the war private. I slept 3 hours and woke up angry, not at the cousin, not even at my parents, but at how easy it was for truth to be twisted into a weapon. I decided to go public, but on my terms. We prepared a dossier: bank statements, email chains, vendor confirmations, and the thing that could sink the cousin, a set of messages between him and the journalist, arranging the smear. It wasn't he pretty. He deep promised exclusives and paid for research that would end up as poison. The evidence was messy human hamming. We released everything to the journalist, who treated us fairly. The article dropped midday. Surgical and precise. Headline: Internal sabotage. How one family war leaked to the press. The piece painted a picture nobody expected. Not a struggling startup versus an evil corporation, but a family rotten with fear, gambling on betrayal to save a legacy. It named names. The reaction was immediate and brutal. My cousin posted a furious conflagration of denial and rage, accusing me of fabricating screenshots. My parents posted something worse. Vague pain pixels of confusion. No defense, no accusation. Only sorrow. The comments weren't split. They were shredded. Friends of mine messaged worried, old clients called. Hesitant. Maya texted, "We may have won the truth. But at what cost?" At dinner that night, my sister showed up at the office. Eyes rimmed red. She handed me a paper, my father's handwriting shaking across the page. He'd resigned from the company. He wrote he couldn't bear the fighting anymore, that he wanted to protect what was left. My mother stayed silent, as if words might collapse her. I felt victorious and hollow at once. Exposing the lie had worked. The smear died overnight. The journalist who debunked the cousin went quiet, and suppliers called to reaffirm commitments. But my victory looked like a crime scene. Family portraits were being burned in public. Conversations turned into court filings. And the quiet safety I'd built with Maya and Jamal felt fragile. That night, I found my dad at the edge of the warehouse lot, staring at a rusted tractor like it held answers. He looked like the man who once taught me to balance ledgers. He looked like someone who'd lost more than a company. "Why did you do it?" he asked, without looking at me. I swallowed. "Because I couldn't watch them kill what we built together." He laughed, then a small broken sound. "You wanted to win." "Maybe I did," I said. But winning, wasn't he supposed to feel like this? He turned to me, face wet with rain or tears. I couldn't tell. "There are things you don't know about what happened before you were born," he said. "Secrets that will change how you see all of this." My stomach dropped. Secrets. The word tasted like gasoline. "Tell me," I said. His answer was a whisper. "That deep in building a lifetime. Not here, not yet." "But your cousin, and he the only one who has been making choices to keep us afloat." I felt the ground tilt beneath me. The story I thought I was writing was only a chapter. Bigger storms were coming, and this time they might not be about business at all. The next morning I drove to my parents' house. It felt like visiting a battlefield after the war, quiet, heavy, haunted. The business signs were still on the lawn, half faded from years of rain. My dad opened the door before I could knock, as if he'd been waiting all night. He didn't say a word, just gestured for me to follow him downstairs. The basement looked different. No dusty Christmas boxes or childhood photos. It was an office now. Filing cabinets lined the walls, and an old computer sat humming in the corner. My dad opened one of the drawers and pulled out a thick, black binder labeled Confidential. My mother sat on the couch, pale and silent, clutching a cup of cold coffee. He handed me the binder. This is what I didn't tell you. Inside were years of invoices, fake ones, payments from companies that didn't exist. I flipped through them, my throat tightening. Dates stretched back nearly 15 years, even before I joined the business. You were laundering money, I asked quietly. He shook his head. Not laundering. Borrowing. We took loans in other names to keep the business alive after the 2008 crash. I thought I could fix it before anyone noticed. Mom spoke then, voice trembling. We never told you because we thought we'd fix it before you took over. But then you started asking questions, and your dad panicked. So you fired me, I said flatly. He nodded once. We thought if you weren't part of it, you couldn't go down with us. If the truth came out, my hands were shaking. All that betrayal, all those sleepless nights, and it wasn't greed. It was fear. Dad looked at me, eyes hollow. Your cousin found out years ago. He has been blackmailing us ever since. That's why he stayed in the company. That's why your mother begged you not to dig too deep. It all clicked into place. The smear campaign, the desperate offers, the silence. They weren't just trying to save pride. They were trying to save themselves from exposure. I stared at them both. You could be, he told me. I could be, he helped. Mom broke down. You were our child, not our shield. We couldn't drag you into this. I turned away, staring at the binder. 15 years of lies. Dad stepped closer. You have power now more than we ever did. Please don't destroy us. The company can't handle another scandal. For a long moment, I didn't speak. I just thought about Maya and Jamal, about how clean and honest we'd built Phoenix, how the secret could ruin everything. Finally, I said, you didn't just hurt me. You poisoned everything you touched. Dad's voice broke. So what are you going to do? I closed the binder. I don't know yet. But this time, the choice will be mine. When I left, my mom followed me to the door. Please, she whispered. Don't let the truth kill the family. I didn't have the heart to tell her it already had. The binder sat on my desk like a ticking time bomb. 15 years of secrets. Invoices, fake accounts. Hidden loans. Proof that my parents' empire was built on fear and deception. I traced my fingers over the pages, thinking of Phoenix, Maya, Jamal, and every client who trusted us. If I leaked this even to protect myself, it could destroy them, and maybe me. For 2 nights, I couldn't sleep. Every scenario played out. Leak the ledger. Phoenix would be untouchable publicly, but the media would spin it. Clients might panic, and my parents, their lives could collapse. Would I be worse than my cousin? Keep it secret. Phoenix would grow, my parents might recover. But the weight of knowing the betrayal and lies would eat me alive. Maya noticed my absence, my staring at the ledger, like it held the answer to the universe. You can't fix this overnight, she said quietly. You have to decide what kind of man you want to be, not just what kind of businessman. Her words struck harder than any headline or lawsuit. I realized I had a choice. Revenge or justice, destruction or preservation. That morning I called my dad. He picked up hesitantly. I can't stop thinking about what you found. He said I don't want to destroy you. I said calm but firm. But I need truth. No lies, no half-truths. Everything must be out in the open inside the company, and we start fresh or I walk away. He hesitated, then nodded. We'll tell the team full transparency. No more secrets. I spent the next week in Phoenix holding meetings, showing every employee the Binder's relevant parts. Some were shocked, some angry, most like Maya and Jamal. Respected that I chose integrity over blind revenge. My parents weren't thrilled when I invited them to a private meeting. Their eyes widened as I laid everything bare. Their mistakes, my cousin's betrayal. The hidden deaths. I didn't shout. I didn't threaten. I just showed the truth. What will you do now? My mother whispered. Now, I said. We fix this together if you can be honest. Otherwise, we go our separate ways. My dad swallowed hard. I want to try, and for the first time in years, I believed we might survive, not because of family loyalty, but because accountability was stronger than fear. Still in the back of my mind, I knew one battle remained confronting my cousin Dot. A day came faster than I expected. My cousin had been flaunting his connections, confident that his smear campaign and threats could topple Phoenix. I arranged a meeting, not in some neutral office, but in the heart of my operation, where I had every advantage. He arrived smug as ever, carrying the air of someone who believed the game was his to win. I didn't greet him. I just motioned to a chair across the table. Sit, I said. He smirked. So the prodigal son finally wants to talk. I opened my laptop and projected emails, text messages, and invoices. Every piece of evidence he tried to manipulate. I watched his expression shift from confidence to panic as he realized how exposed he was. You think this proves anything? He spat. It proves everything, I said. You lied, threatened, and tried to ruin lives. And for what? Control, money, pride. He laughed nervously. It's just business. Business, I leaned forward, voice calm but deadly. This was family, and you betrayed it. You threatened my parents, the people who gave you every chance, and you tried to destroy the company I built from nothing. And for what now? You're done. I had already contacted the journalist who discovered Phoenix fairly and arranged for an exposed betrayal of a family. How one man tried to ruin everything. It would go live in hours. Legal action was already in motion. His threats null. His leverage gone. He realized it, his smugness evaporated. Wait, you can't watch me, I said after he left. Defeated and humiliated, I called my parents into the office. My father looked older than ever, but there was a relief in his eyes. My mom's hands shook slightly as she clasped mine. I don't know how to say this. Dad said I was wrong. We were all wrong. You still have a choice, I replied. We can rebuild Phoenix together, honestly. Or you step aside and I continue alone. But no lies. No secrets. No games. They nodded, tears in their eyes. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Weeks later, Phoenix Supply became stronger than ever. We regained lost clients, expanded to new markets, and became a symbol not just of business success, but of integrity and resilience. My parents stayed involved, humbler, more aware of the cost of deception. My cousin vanished from the industry, his reputation in ruins. I learned something crucial through it all. Success without morality is hollow. Revenge may taste sweet at first, but forgiveness and transparency build legacies. I still remember the day they fired me, the day they said I wasn't needed. And now, after blood, tears and hard choices, I realized I didn't just survive. I rose stronger, wiser, and finally in control of my own story. And yes, maybe AITA for taking it this far. Maybe, but sometimes, surviving the people who raised you requires more than forgiveness. It requires proving you can rise above it all.